Okay, so I've got my shoulder seams pressed open. I'm going to work on the neckband now. So while I was at the iron, I pressed my neckband in half just to crease it in place. Now, since I did the instructions for this 1874 t-shirt, I tried a few different things with my neckbands. One thing I've been quite enjoying is pinning it rather than stitching it together. You need to join the edges together in some way. So I was stitching them, but now I'm just going to pin them every 1.5 inches or so. Because when you stretch it, it tends to roll, and it's difficult to get the edges to meet properly. So I'm just putting in lots of pins. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about centering it and fitting it and whatever. I'm just going to start at one end. I might put this flat on my table. Okay, so I'm just going to start at one end and pin it in place. And before I go pinning it all, I'm just going to check that it will fit nicely when I stretch it in a certain way. So I'm going to just stretch it moderately and hold it just to make sure that I've got enough to go all the way around. Okay, so that's just a good length for working with this this particular knit. If you're using ribbing, it will stretch more, so this length will be plenty of length for you. Okay, so I'm going to hold it at the beginning and I'm going to stretch it. Just, I mean, not sort of ridiculously, just, it's hard to explain, I suppose, but just firmly. So I'm just going to stretch it firmly so you can see that it's stretched. And I'm going to use my pins along the way to hold it in place. So I'm going to hold where I put the last pin and stretch it firmly again. So it should be stretched just enough to buckle up the neck when you let it go. So you can see that it just starts to buckle up the neck. But you don't want to stretch it so tight that the neck won't fit around your doll. So I'm just going to check my seam is still open. Stretch firmly again. And you need to put your pins in about every 1 inch or 1.5 inches, just depending on what the curve is that you're going around. So in the front here so I can see where it joins up there. So that one will only be a short distance from the last one. So I put my finger on the last pin, stretch it firmly and pin it together just where it meets the neckline. So I'm using extra pins as well as the pins that are in my neckband. Open my shoulder seam again. So this method works for any kind of knit because you don't have to rely on cutting the band a particular length, you just have to perhaps make sure you've got enough band. You don't want to cut it too much shorter than the neck. But if you cut it nearly as long as your neck, t-shirt neck, then you will always have plenty, because when you stretch it, it will be long enough. So I'm just slowly working around, stretching as I go. And that last one, the edge has got a bit out of alignment. Okay. All right, so we've got lots of pins, but that's okay. And it wrinkles up the neckband of the t-shirt. Now some of my pins have not been sharp enough, probably. Just make sure all my neckband pieces are nice and flat. Okay, so now I'm ready to sew that with my narrow zigzag and a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm just going to get started by doing a few stitches to secure the thread in the fabric. I'm going to stop with my needle down, and then I need to gently stretch as I sew. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to apply a little bit of pressure on my thread tails to start with, so that as I'm pulling forward with this finger, my right hand is pulling back, so there's a nice even pressure on each end, and it moves through the machine properly. So come up to the first pin, take it out, stretch it out again, pull it from the back a bit, just gently, so that you get an even movement through the machine. So I don't pick it up in the front, I just stretch it and press down with my fingers to hold it, and it goes through the machine. I suppose you should stop with your needle down, but I don't pull so hard that it moves it, but if it does move, it's a real pain. Actually, it's got folded in there. There we go. So it's a good idea to sort of check your edges each time you stop, just make sure nothing's rolled up out of place. So now I'm holding the neck as I pull through. And it's not actually, you don't actually pull it through, you've just got to hold it and let the machine move it. You're just balancing the forward pull on your finger on the neck band. So my needle seems to be working quite well. I haven't had any problems with it yet. Just make sure I don't get any little creases. Pleats, I suppose you'd call them. So nearly there. And back stitch at the end. Okay, so there's my neckband. Looks quite neat, and I can trim off the leftover bit at the end. T-shirt knit is pretty good because it doesn't tend to unravel and fray. Now this is not a true double knit because it has a ribbing appearance on the back. A pearl appearance on the back, the way normal knitting does. So this is not a true double knit, but it seems to be pretty good as far as unraveling goes. It doesn't unravel. All right, so what's next in my instructions? Okay, so I've done my neckband in a different fashion to the instructions, and now we're going to press it, and then it's time to do the sleeves.